True, it's true.
I do want one time this to be that you're calling me. You're cold. And I'm just mad all the time. Yeah, so this is like, yesterday we were working in the garage and I was like, they all like,
Everybody, why don't we maybe
and then it started raining.
grab a seat or stand, whatever your heart desires. Sit or stand. We maybe need to share these. Just on your turn. You sort of have to pass it in that direction and let people take one. Maybe there'll be one for me as well.
Okay. We can share. Eloise can share one.
I'm not going to share. Beautiful. Yeah, they're coming in. Oh, perfect.
You can read if you want. You want me to hear it?
The hush falls over the crowd. Good. That means that you're all ready too. Well, welcome. Although not, as I said to the people, it's not to my house, to Dale's house, to Joan's house. This project that they've been working on. This morning, I'm going to just begin us with a couple of little things, kind of orient us to the space. And then Dale is going to take over, tell us the story of the house. Micah's going to jump in, tell us some things about, they're both going to talk about how we all might live a little differently. And then we'll do some tours. Dale's going to take the people who really want to nerd out on this house. And Joan's going to take the people who are just kind of interested in learning the not so nerdy stuff, perhaps, or less nerdy stuff. So we'll split it into two groups to do that. That's the general plan for the morning. Dale will give us some like orienting stuff. He'll tell you about some things that you need to know about the space too when he starts. But I want to begin by just again orienting us to this space, yes, but also just to what we're doing here today. We're not in a church sanctuary. That does not mean though that the space that we are in is not sacred space. Any space that we are in holds the potential for sacredness. Yes? And so I'm just going to light this candle. In a lot of churches, there's this practice every week of lighting what's called the Christ candle. And it's a symbolic act. This candle holds no power. I think we got it from Target or something, of non-significance. Doesn't come from any special store. But it can be a helpful act in that it reminds us of the light of Christ in the world and the light shining through us to the world. So I want to just say, hey, this is a unique space. It's not a sanctuary. It's not a church, and yet it is sacred, potentially. With that in mind, I want to invite you to enter into this litany here, which is on the handout at the top. And we'll say these words together here again, just affirming not only the sacredness of our time, but also this call that is extended to us to be good stewards of the earth. Yeah. And yes, why don't we move a few more people in this way? There's some places to stand over here. But yes, we're just going to shift. Perfect. Good morning to everyone. Glad you're here. So we're at the top of the page here. Your words are bolded. Creator God, you formed the heavens and the earth, and you called them good.
We give thanks for your gift of creation.
You plant in us a longing to live in harmony with the earth.
Teach us to walk gently, to use wisely, to care deeply.
For walls that shelter, for light that warms, for air and water kept clean.
We give thanks and commit ourselves to faithful stewardship.
May this home be a place of welcome, a sign of peace, a dwelling of love.
And may our lives extend those same gifts to those we meet. Amen.
I printed the very end of Amos. We went through Amos this summer, and these are the last verses of Amos. And you'll just note the way in which the created world is used to try and help communicate what is true or what could be true. And also the way in which the created world is a part of any restoration act that God seems to be doing. The created world is always a part of it. So, at the funeral yesterday of Haley Sweet, we read Revelation, which at the very end of the Bible is a picture of what is to come. And in that picture of what is to come are included things like rivers and trees and a promise of a new earth. And so I just want to, again, orient us to the reality that if you are someone who is a Christian or someone who is a person of faith, we should be like the most mindful and passionate people about taking good care of this earth of anyone, really, in the world. Because we would say that this world was made by God, and it was declared good, and it is a gift. And part of what God does for humans is says, join me in caring for this earth, this good place. So all of that to say, part of why we're here is to learn about how we can be good stewards of this earth. And Dale, I don't know a better setup, so it's all yours, my friend. Hopefully that gets you moving in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. With this project that's been on my mind for about 3 years, and Joan's been with me along the whole process here, making it all happen. So, I do have a speaker here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can I use it?
I think I just
Joan, I'm going to need your help here.
There you go.
Well, we will try without it. Don't get it all charged up for us, but it's not right. But we should have checked that ahead of time. We have a little more room for standing back here, and 2 chairs right here, and 2 chairs right here. So, come on in.
Good job, Laura. Would be great.
So thanks for scrunching in. I was a little worried about being all scrunched in, but thanks for making it work. Just a couple logistics things. The house is not as done, obviously, as I had hoped when Chris and I first set this date. It looks like about November 1 when we finish at this point. There's not running water in the house. There is a porta-john in back if you need to use that. It's been cleaned, so it might be the cleanest porta-john you've ever seen. But so you need that. You need to walk back past the garage toward the alley, and it's back there. There are snacks and drinks. There's a back patio, so we'll be heading there as part of the morning if you need to grab something. You're running out of sugar or whatever, there's food back there. So what else to say about logistics? Anybody got questions or thoughts about anything? Okay. So I want to pick up where Chris started, kind of on, what does God call us to? And there's a verse, I'll just read it real quick, Genesis 2:15. That sometimes is, I'd say, kind of poorly translated or for sure poorly applied. And the verse says, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. Some translations say to rule it. And I think there's been, in Western tradition especially, there's been this very utilitarian view of the earth, that it's here for us to just use it, and really to use it up is what ends up happening. And the actual Hebrew words, and I learned this from Dr. Suzanne McDonald, who's at Hope College. She's become kind of a hero of mine in this space and thinking about it, but she goes through a whole bunch of Bible verses and what they say about how God cares for the earth and how we misapply that in Western Christianity in many ways. And there's even kind of use the word stewardship, which is a whole lot better than using and abusing. But there's people saying we really need to go beyond stewardship to more of a kinship or relationship with creation. So anyway, just some background. I wanted to kind of amplify what Chris said in our intro. So why am I involved in this? I'm kind of a science nerd. I'm an engineer. Spent time in HVAC for 30 years, and I told my story at the branch a year ago, so I won't go into all those details. I will say that I read Scientific American, and I read about climate science for years. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. The physics makes sense. But it might be kind of nice to have a couple degrees of warming here in Michigan, So just sort of this naive way of thinking about it. And my daughter, who's studying environmental studies, gave me this book for Christmas. This would have been about 8 years ago, maybe. And it goes through what happens to the planet in all our ecosystems with each degree of warming. And basically, past about 3 degrees, we're in big trouble. Like, we've got whole ecosystems failing, human civilizations failing. It really kind of just highlighted what the stakes are. And kind of pushed me from being kind of a science curious guy to being I need to get involved here in some way. And there was an initiative at my old church called the Climate Witness Project, and I got involved in that, started a team at the church. That's when we had Suzanne in, and she did our first adult ed session and talked about kind of the biblical reasons to be doing this. I have some books set out here. Carl Mayer Scops, a pastor and leader here in town, and he's got Following Jesus in a Warming World, is the most recent one I read. Deb Rienstra at Calvin College. We had her in to speak at one point, Refugee of Faith, and it's kind of a very actionable, personal way of thinking about this, that we can create these little refugia, which in biology are places that live through a disaster and recover, like Mount St. Helens is the example of a refugia, where these little places that didn't get completely wiped out by the ash that dumped on everything. And surprisingly, they come back, they join together, and you get way more life in a short amount of time than you think about. And we can do that with our places. We can have little refugia of health and well-being in our backyards. Maybe in a house like this is kind of my version of the attempt to do that. So there's a little background to kind of what I'm about. The engineer side of me was very motivated by this book. This gentleman is an entrepreneur, inventor, MacArthur Genius Grant recipient, and he basically lays out a plan. We're going to actually get to net zero as a planet. How do we do that? And his plan is to electrify everything. And in the U.S., that means about 1 billion gas-burning appliances and machines that have to get converted to electrified machines that are running on renewable energy. So being an engineer and someone who wants to actually have a plan, I appreciated this book. It's maybe not the perfect plan, and there's other ways to, besides electrifying, to get us there. But this house, for example, is all electric, and I'm a believer in building all electric houses. They're safer, and they get us on the path to reduce the carbon emissions. So Catherine Hale is another, the last book I got here I'll mention. She's a hero of mine. She's a climate scientist. That's great, accessible things for Christians to think about how to engage. One of her big things she says is we need to talk about it. We need to, that using our voices and advocacy with our friends and family becomes a way to just not have this consensus of silence around this growing crisis around us. So anyway, there's a little bit of background and why I got involved. And so there's lots of different ways to get involved, and I wanted to just kind of throw it open to the group here. What are ways that you or your families have gotten involved in things that look like creation care? Shout out a few examples.
We've been slowly tearing out part of our lawn over the last 9 years. Lawn just keeps going away more and more, and then we put native plants in that allow for more pollinators to move in. It's able to gather up more of the water so that it's not, like we've talked about at the branch, just getting on the ground, heating up, pulling out all the contaminants and going straight down the drain into the river. So that's something that we've been doing since we moved into our house, and it's beautified the house a whole lot more. I think it's been a nicer space to be in, and hopefully it has meant that we've had to use less water, but also that we've had a lot more friendly critters moving through our yard.
Yeah. Yeah, you've created a refugia in Deborah and Trislan.
That's definitely what I've called it.
Yeah. So yeah, great example. Multiple benefits from converting to more native plants. We're trying to do some of that around the house too, which you can see on the tour. So thank you. Other thoughts?
You talk. Go. I've been similar with Dawn and native plants.
Cool. Yeah.
The pollinator garden, like intentionally keeping milkweed.
Mm-hmm. The monarchs. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Anybody grow up recycling? So lots of head shaking on that. That's I sort of think of that as an entry point into at least starting to think about being more responsible. As you start learning more, so recycling has its own limitations, and at some point, are we enabling bad industries to exist? But anyway, it's at least a start. It's better than putting it in a landfill. So I recycle diligently. Even on this job site, I tried to run a clean job site. All the cardboard ends up going to recycling. Plastics when we can. Wood scrap has been harder. If anybody needs some clean wood scrap, there's a couple boxes on the curb there you can take home for a fire pit. Plywood's been going to landfill, although Mike has got a lead on a place that might be dealing with that here. So anyway, there's things that recycling is a good starting place. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
I try really hard not to buy like individually packaged things for like kid snacks and stuff like that, and then use like stasher bags or reusable plastic, reusable washable bags and things like that,
Yeah.
so that we're throwing as much, having to
Right.
throw as much into landfill.
Yeah. Reducing what goes to the landfill. Yeah. Good. All right. Would now be a good time to pivot to just a little bit about recycling.
Sure.
Micah is the expert on it. I'll let him take the floor. here.
Right. So, recycling. Materials management, actually, overall. Just so you know, I have been teaching for almost 20 years now, in some form or another, and really for the last almost 10, probably 9 and a half in like an environmental sense. So taught place-based ways, so really how people and children specifically can learn about their space or learn about topics using the space that they're in, which obviously has a really deep environmental bent. And then also just like environmental science focus for the last 4 years prior to becoming to my current position. So the environment has always been a pretty big influence in my own career, but also just my own life. And then when I was able to transition away from classroom teaching, I work now for the county. And so the county, it's big, has a lot of different departments, and one department is the Department of Public Works. And the best way to describe Department of Public Works is like, if you've got stuff and you want it to go away, the away is a place, and we're that place. We have all the different places that stuff goes. And just a very quick, brief way to think about it is that for the majority of human history, when we had stuff that we didn't want anymore, oftentimes we used it until it was just very, very, very unusable. And then even then, we still probably used it in some fashion, like as a fuel source or something else, or it just got burned or buried in like our Uncle Joe's backyard. It's really within the last like 60 to 75 years that we've been developing enough material that we need like dedicated spots to hold the sheer amount of material that we are producing as folks, and that's where we get landfills. Kent County has probably upwards of 25 to 30 closed landfills. Most of them were non-permitted landfills, meaning that they were pretty much just dump sites. Like you just dump something in the ground, bury it, burn it, whatever, and the effects of that going into the groundwater, the soil, everything else are generally just not even thought about until the last probably 50 years when there was actual permitting processes. So Michigan itself is a very landfill happy state. There's a lot of landfilling that happens. There's more trash per man, woman, and child in the entire state than any other state in the country.
I don't think we should use the word happy.
That's bad. It's bad, meaning that we are really good at landfilling. That's why trash comes into the state from out of state and out of country, because it's really cheap and therefore really profitable to bury trash in Michigan. There are people working, it's gross, yeah, I agree. So there are people working to try to change that narrative at every level, but there's a lot of business interest in continuing that, and so it's just a big struggle. Things move slow. The biggest, I really appreciate that Dale's talking about how he can run a clean site. That's really important. Construction and demolition waste it's a big chunk, but the biggest chunk of waste that goes into landfills is municipal solid waste. That's our trash, the stuff that we're putting in our trash bags. Over 75% of the stuff that goes to a landfill is coming from just our homes or businesses or schools and things like that. So really it is like us. We are the ones that really have the biggest ability to make shifts that can change how much waste is going into the landfill. And it really is kind of like Dale said, it really requires some step-by-step work in that. If you try to just all of a sudden change your waste footprint to zero, you're going to get really overwhelmed. It's going to be really, really difficult. And it's probably going to mean that you turn into a hermit and people are going to think you're weird. So it really is a step-by-step thing. Just like you said, entry point of recycling. And then also then recycling in the sense of that bin that you've got, right? That's the bare minimum of recycling. Recycling is actually a really, really large topic, and what goes in that bin is just a very small piece of what can be recycled. That's what we call single stream recycling. And so the Kent County Department of Public Works has the main recycling facility in the county and then therefore actually the West Michigan area for single stream recycling. Single stream recycling is like the stuff that you're recycling when you look for that symbol, right? And that can go into that bin. And it's all mixed, right? You've got plastics with papers, with glass, with metals. And that single stream recycling is meant to make things a little easier for us. And it's a little easier, but kind of like Dale kind of touched on there, maybe it's a little too easy. And it makes us be able to just be like, oh, there, I put it in the can, no problem whatsoever. And so use it, but then once you've started using it, getting a little bit more information into what things have higher recyclability or more circularity in the recyclability will allow for you to use recycling a little bit more I suppose, informed, rather than just assuming that if it goes into the bin that there's no harm, no foul, which is not the case. So I do have a recycling guide. This guide is designed to give information specifically for what can go to our facility. So if you're in the city of Grand Rapids, or anywhere really around here, it's probably going to come to our facility. That's not a guarantee. There is no there's no guideline or standards out there saying that if a city has recycling, it has to look like this. It's just piecemeal. And so if you live outside the city of Grand Rapids, I can't guarantee where your recycling goes because that's proprietary information and blah, blah, blah. You talk to your hauler and you say, hey, where's my stuff go? If you're in the area, it's probably coming to us. But say you got an Aero Waste card out in front of your curb, hopefully they're communicating with you about where your stuff goes, or at the very least what's accepted. If not, call them up. They've got a call center. They come to us, they ask us questions, and then you can say, hey, where's my stuff go? It goes to the Kent County Department of Public Works Recycling and Education Center. Then yes, you know that you can follow these guidelines. If you live somewhere else, it may go somewhere else. Usually, like if you're in Ottawa, it's like halfway between going to Holland or sometimes coming to us. And those guidelines are different. They don't accept glass, for example. But like I said, most of the time it comes to us. So these guidelines are exactly that, guidelines.
Can you pass those around, Micah?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll pass these around. Take one if you want. Otherwise, it's available online in PDF format. You can print them off, print as many as you want. Incidentally, paper is more circular than other items, so don't feel too bad about printing stuff off. So that recycling guide has a few things, tells you what you should be able to put into your recycling bin, tells you what do not put in your recycling bin. And then on the back is kind of like a behind the curtain type of thing, because a lot of people hear stories about, hey, recycling is pointless, it all goes to landfill anyway. It's a map showing this is where it's going. It is not going to landfills, it's going to processors that process this material for being made into a new item. But like I said, recycling is kind of like bare minimum, and that single stream recycling bin is the bare minimum. So there's a lot of other options out there for things like Dale was saying, like wood products. If you can be purposeful about it, a lot of that doesn't have to go to landfill, which is great. Materials that you could possibly reuse, if you could reuse rather than single use, that's really good, because then there's no need for all the energy being put into making those items from the old items. Metals, there's so much metal that goes to the landfill. All those other items that have recyclability but just take that second step, those can get diverted as well. So currently I have a big bucket of metal in my garage, and I'm hoping for like a good payday when I take it to the scrapyard, because it's a lot of metal. If you start holding on to your metal, like every screw, everything, you actually start building up quite a bit. I grabbed a chair from the church the other day.
Nice. You with permission, or
You told me yes.
okay?
With metal?
I need $20.
Are these aerosol cans recyclable?
Yeah, they actually are. So our manager's not a huge fan of that, but yeah, they can go in there. Just make sure it's empty. So like empty, and I mean the only thing that's going to really explode would be things that have the ability to explode, like a propane tank. Those are the big no-nos, right? And so that kind of actually brings me to my next thing. So this is a safe homes guide, basically, kind of like if you go down the rabbit trail of materials, meaning the stuff that we all come into contact with every day and use and stuff, you actually start realizing how pretty awful a lot of the things we use are, poisonous and dangerous. And a lot of that, if we are careful, we would be like, oh, this actually shouldn't go in my trash or down the drain or the recycling bin. So we've got places for some of that stuff too. The biggest one would be our Safe Chem drop-off sites. If you've used these, you know how easy they are. There's 5 of them in the county, and there's one of them open every weekday, Monday through Friday, somewhere. The hours aren't like extremely convenient, but when you look at other counties who have maybe one collection day per year or one collection day per season, then you start realizing how huge of an asset this is to Kent County residents. And basically anything that is poisonous, corrosive, flammable, something that you know you wouldn't want to drink or put down your drain. Pesticides, oil-based paints, not latex-based, aerosol paints, all that stuff you can take to here as a resident, and they'll take them off your hands for free.
And you don't even have to get out of your car.
You
Just
don't
drive
get-
up and
They don't want you to get in your car, right? Because you might be Joe Schmo coming up with something that doesn't mix with something else, and they're like, no, please let us handle this, because then they don't have a boom boom happen. Yeah, a literal cannonball was brought there a few weeks ago. Yeah, it was interesting. So that is right here. And then as we do transition to more electrification, we are now seeing another huge problem in the waste industry, which is batteries. And so actually batteries are really complicated. There's a lot of different kinds. So we've got different disposal sites for those as well. Propane tanks, compressed gas, lots of things. And then other things here, even medicine, sharps that you might be using and don't have a use for anymore. So this guide is really, really helpful. Again, online. These are 2 flyers, so they're very limited in like what we can fit on one page. Our website is the thing that has the majority of the information. I will tell you, it's a government website that is being run by government employees, and we're doing our best to make it better and easier to use, but that's hard. I'm not a web designer. I guess I have people I could ask for some help with that, but I'm not a web designer, so I fumbled through there and tried to change things on there, and so did my colleagues. But you can go on there literally and type in something like mattress and say, where does this go? This goes to landfill. But then you can type that stuff in and figure out where you might have an option, so that we put like other places on there where you can take items. So if you're looking for a good scrap metal dealer in town, you go in there and it'll show you where you can take your scrap. If you're looking for a place that you can take other items, we are trying to find places. So like, wood products, there's actually a few different places that are starting to take those. And there's always more people dipping their toe into those areas to try to make better options for dealing with those materials. So checking that out on the website. Last thing, this is an exciting thing for Kent County. I never want to say go buy as much styrofoam as you could try. It's a really awful material that's difficult to handle, but sometimes it's just unnecessary. You can't avoid it, especially if you've got things like medical items or other things that are being shipped to you. It comes to you and you don't have a really way to not buy it. So we have a styrofoam drop-off site. I'm not going to pass this around. Take it if you want. It's just a little. We have a styrofoam drop-off site up at North Kent transfer station that is in Rockford. So if you're, just got one piece of styrofoam, you probably don't want to go up there. Just bring that one piece. But if you get a lot and you start accumulating quite a bit, taking a trip up there and dropping it in the window. The reason why it's in that one place is because basically an entire semi truckload, if you load it up, you have maybe 500 pounds of styrofoam, and no trucking company is going to say, sure, I'll ship 500 pounds of something. It's not worth it. So it has to get condensed and then palletized, and that site is where the condenser is. And so that's why it goes there.
Say, if you want to bring styrofoam to us, I go every now and then. I got a big cargo van, so I can just hold it until I get a lot.
Yep. That's the best way to do it.
Styrofoam connection.
And a lot of this is in community, right? If you have somebody who's like, hey, I like to collect metal, and go down there, then say, hey, here's my old wrench. I don't know, whatever, things like that. Yes.
Does Comprenew or whatever the one on Ionia is, do they not take styrofoam anymore?
I didn't know Comprenew ever did. But
That's
they did.
what's off of Ionia, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I didn't know they were a styrofoam
Yeah,
collector.
it's limited hours, and someone has to be there, and you go in and they watch you drop it off. But I have dropped styrofoam off there before.
They might.
That's a site worth knowing as well.
Comprenew is really helpful for electronics. We take electronics for free, but some places may pay you, or they might have a small fee. Electronics, anything with a cord, a screen, a battery, or something shouldn't go in the landfill. There are ways to recycle those. sorry, I will stop talking because this is about the house, not about trash. But if you have any other questions, let me know. And yeah, hopefully that was enough information.
Oh, good, thanks, man.
Great, thank you. I often bring electronics, by the way, to Valley City Recycling on 32nd. They've been pretty easy to work with. Johnson has brings them down to the 100th Street Recycling Place, old TVs.
100th Street is our site too. They can take electronics there.
Good. So let's pivot a little bit to the house and kind of some of the unique things about the house. So who can tell me what a net zero house means? I know what that means.
It produces as much energy as it will use.
Correct. Yes, on an annual basis. I'll add
Yes.
that. So in the summer, it'll produce more energy than it uses because summer sun's quite a bit more powerful than winter sun. And in the winter, you'll have to buy from
There's the sun in the wind.
in the winter, you'll end up buying back from consumers. So you'll have a small electric bill, even with a net zero house, because you sell the extra at half price and you buy back at full price, of course. So.
That makes a lot of sense. So great.
So anyway, this house I've tried to make, in terms of the goals for this house, were to be comprehensively net zero. So not just enough power for the house, but also for 2 EVs. So the garage will have 2 EV chargers in it. So and it's interesting when you do the energy model on that, the house takes about 40% of the production of the solar array, which is about 15 megawatt hours a year. The house takes about 6, and the EVs are about 4 each. So it takes a lot of energy to roll vehicles down the road, is what you start realizing when you start doing the math on all this. So that's what I tried to do, is be comprehensively net zero in terms of the design of the solar. And the way you get there in a house like this is a certified passive house, the first CS0 certified house in Grand Rapids. Will also be Green Star Platinum.
That's what's classic.
The first one in Grand Rapids.
First
I
one in
mean,
Grand Rapids,
wow.
yep. And it'll be the first triple certified house in Grand Rapids, meaning it's Green Star Platinum and LEED Platinum. as
Pretty
well.
cool.
Assuming we can hit all the right targets. I think we're on track. But it has to get through final certification, which will be November, December-ish. So the other thing I've tried to do with this house is reduce the amount of energy or carbon that it took to build it. And one of the primary things you can do to do that is to use natural insulation. So out on the table outside, I've got a few samples of materials, one of which is a little chunk of wood fiber insulation. So instead of using fiberglass or foam, which have high energy embodied carbon, if you use a natural insulation, you end up sequestering carbon in your walls for the next 100, 200 years that otherwise would have maybe rotted in a landfill or rotted in a compost site or something like that too. So you've sequestered that carbon. This wood fiber insulation is made in Maine, and it's sawmill scraps. So a lumber sawmill used to send their scraps to a paper mill, now makes it into this insulation. So anyway, that's one way to reduce the carbon in the house. The other way is to eliminate concrete. Concrete's a high embodied carbon material. Currently, there's people working on fixing that. And I'll be I've asked numerous times, can somebody mix me some low carbon concrete? So far, I can't get anybody to say yes here in the area. But the garage has a bunch of concrete in it, but the house has no concrete in it. And it's built on a foundation that includes a foamed glass aggregate. Matt and Chris know about that. They were here right at the beginning. And this picture, this little set of pictures over here is about that foundation system. It's probably the most innovative thing. It's got my fingerprints on it in terms of the design of it. But we used the foam glass aggregate on the second stand. You can see the crane there spreading it around out of these big 3-yard super sacks. And Chris is running the compactor there in that top picture, compacting it down. But it's made from a recycled glass that gets ground up, foamed up like a pumice stone, and it's insulative, and it acts like the drainage layer underneath. So anyway, I could get even more geeky and tell you more about all that, but don't say it. Ready to do. So So anyway, I sometimes talk to more technical audiences, so then I get even more geeky, but anyway.
But you talk to me a lot too.
So anyway, that's an attempt to get the embodied carbon, the upfront carbon out of the design. And some of those are just material substitution. Some of it takes a little more creative design work. So anyway, what else? So I built it to be all electric. So this house is, kind of combining energy efficiency. Our 40 some walls, no, I'm sorry, our 60 walls, our 90 roof. Joan's shaking her head again. Okay.
That's impressive.
Very, very energy efficient. Renewable energy and low embodied carbon is how we're trying to get to net zero with this house. So
Single pane windows, I'm sure, right?
single pane times 4. They're quad pane windows actually, which I needed to hit the requirements for the FIAS Zero energy targets. I started with triple pane. The sample outside on the table is a triple pane example of a passive house rated window, but I ended up with quad pane with Krypton.
Yes.
And then,
Can defeat Superman, can defeat climate.
Can you
So-
tell, we might have the same question. I'm
Yeah.
curious, what does the number of panes have to do with like?
So whenever you create dead airspace in a window, you improve the ability to insulate. So the insulative value of the window goes up as you create more dead air spaces. We also put special coatings on some of those pieces of glass that will let sunlight in, let's say in the winter. So like these windows here have a little overhang over them. That's just the right angle that it lets the winter sun in for kind of free heat and doesn't let the summer sun in. But back to the panes, they'll have a coating on them that lets the sunlight in but doesn't let the infrared heat out of the house. So that's called a low E coating. So the more panes you got, the more of that kind of magic you can do with the chemistry. So, yeah, good question.
I just, to help us understand, like the numbers are 60, like what is a traditional house number so that we can know the difference?
I believe code is about R30 on the walls. So
like double.
So it's about double, yeah. So this house will be heated and cooled. This is a 2-ton temporary heat pump. It'll be cooled with a 1-ton heat pump that'll be in the stairway. A normal house would take a 3-ton unit. So typically a certified passive house will be about 1/3 to 1/4 the amount of energy as a normal house would take to run. So the advantage of that is if for some reason everything would die, the grid's down, the batteries on the garage are flat, this house could maintain its temperature for probably a week before you start having to worry about freezing pipes in the middle of the winter because it's cold. Well, it's like it's done
Just like our house.
so.
We have 30 minutes.
I know. We would all die. Wow.
Yeah.
And, I assume on the tour, like a lot of these questions we might have about the house, we could ask them
Right.
on the tour as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, just to orient you a little bit to, these pictures of the foundations, if you want to geek out on that, look at that. Yeah, these over here are the envelope system, and the picture right at Kevin's left there is the one that shows the sun angles coming through past those overhangs. So you can see some of the details that you can't see anymore because they're hidden behind the drywall. If you're interested in some of those details, there's a flyer I do have about the house. John, I don't know if you can grab that a minute there, but on the table, I got a few resources there that are probably better if I would email them to you. I've got links to all kinds of stuff. If you wanted to electrify your own home, as Micah said, you don't do this all at once. This is a step-by-step thing. So when you got to replace your furnace, maybe instead of doing a furnace, you look at doing a heat pump or a hybrid furnace heat pump system. Not that one, no, it's the one in the front, about the house, sorry. That one can be passed around, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Dale, can you talk about like air exchange?
yes,
You hear a lot about a house needing to breathe. So how does that
right. So, there's a little saying about that. houses don't need to breathe, people need to breathe.
Yes,
So-
right.
So it's a little bit of a myth, kind of
Okay.
that houses need to breathe. It's kind of true because people need to breathe.
Right.
So this house is super airtight. That's one of the passive house principles. So that's why I've got windows open, because the ventilator, there'll be an energy recovery ventilator, it's called, will bring fresh air in the house. And, that's needed in a really airtight house, because the CO2 levels would be through the roof
Right.
if we were all standing here without the windows open, so. So it's really important to have a good ventilator. This one will have good enough filters in it, it'll take wildfire smoke out of the air. So for anybody with asthma or allergies, this would be an ideal house because the air will be super filtered, super healthy. Try to pick materials that don't off-gas VOCs, volatile organic chemicals. So this house is designed to be not only very energy efficient, but very healthy. So
Is that air circulating 24/7?
24/7,
Okay.
always bringing a little bit of fresh air in. Above Janelle there's a round circle in the ceiling that's kind of closed. And that'll be fresh air coming in. And then the exhaust air above Chris there will be the exhaust kind of in the kitchen. So that's true of most places. We bring the fresh air into the kind of the living area, the exhaust it out of the bathrooms, the kitchen, the laundry. So you've always got fresh air kind of circulating through the house, is the design of that system. That's one of the passive house requirements. Good question. Other question?
I say, let's move.
Time to move.
You can be available for questions.
Yeah. Okay. Any other just general questions about philosophy or anything before we move? Okay, we're gonna split into two groups. Oh, yeah, I meant that. No, that's not it.
We got one. We got this.
That's not it. Good.
So if you don't geek out on details, you can follow me.
John's gonna start.
We'll start upstairs.
If you want the details, go to the front porch. Okay.
Yes, you gotta go.
Policy is so important. I didn't talk about that, but individual actions matter. Policy, I think, matters.
The little version, right? This is very.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
All right, relax here. I'll rest.
Going outside.
If you don't want to, you can go up. And now went up there. They've always had this like
Yeah, probably buried in the tunnel. Yep. We gotta get that
John's
tunnel
gonna
going
give a
soon.
tour that probably doesn't have as much science involved.
And Dale's this way.
Dale's gonna do more of the science involved.
I mean, it's all,
You pick.
yeah, it's shifts. Is there anybody on? What? Is anyone online right now? Let's.
Joan is doing a tour.
All right, I'm gonna end the stream. Bye bye, everybody.